Agora nós reservamos esse momento do evento para falar sobre o futuro, o nosso roadmap e o que nossos clientes podem esperar em termos de inovação. E para isso, eu gostaria de convidar Bryan Cheung, nosso CEO global.
All right, well, thank you everyone for still being here. It's the afternoon. I usually get to speak in the morning when everyone's all excited. So now I'll really know if my presentation is good or not. It's been really great fun seeing everything that's going on in the Liferay ecosystem here in Brazil and South America. I met people from Mexico, from Peru. I met some people from the university who are doing really cool things with the marriage of the digital and physical worlds. You should really check it out. And I wanted to talk this afternoon about how all of this stuff comes together. So Liferay is a company. We are providing technology in the midst of a lot of change, a lot of opportunity with digital transformation. Where do we see ourselves fitting in within all of this activity and opportunity? Because I think we would be the first to admit that digital transformation is something much bigger, much greater than just Liferay. But we want to play an important part in helping you to achieve that in your companies. So Fernando was telling me that not everyone is familiar with the terms about digital and some of the concepts. I want to make a case that this is more than just a buzzword. That's not just the latest thing that the analysts are talking about, but this is something real. And to help me do that, I looked at a report from Andreessen Horowitz, they're a venture capital firm in the US, and they were talking about why some of the valuations of the so-called unicorns, companies like Uber or Airbnb, over $1 billion, are justified compared to what happened in 1999 with the dot-com bubble. And looking at the amount of money that's being spent online was one of the ways that they wanted to support this idea. Compared with 16 years ago, 1999, when we first had companies like Webvan and Pets.com, there was very, very little actual money being spent online. A combination of e-commerce and online advertising was much less than, let's say, $25 million. So it's not bad, right? But now in 2014, we're looking at about $350 billion being spent in a combination of e-commerce and online advertising, which is a lot of money. And yet, when you actually compare it with the total amount of money going through the US retail industry, it's still just a fraction, right? So just looking at e-commerce, just looking at retail, we've only hit 6% of saturation. And this is just the US. We're not even talking about global commerce at all. So this is something it's real, it's here to stay, and it's a threat for some of you, but it's also a big opportunity to fundamentally change some of the ways that you do business. Now, Fernando mentioned in the morning that we're not talking about e-business, right? I think one of the things about the first dot-com bubble was that a lot of it was e-business. Let's take some existing business model and just do it online, right? I was reading up on Pets.com preparing for this, and one of the things they didn't realize was that pet food is very, very heavy. So when you try to sell it online and ship it to people, it actually costs you a lot of money. And Pets.com, I think, had $200 or $300 million of funding. They lost money on every sale they made. So I think they charged about 27% of the cost of what they actually paid, plus all the shipping, not even counting advertising and marketing fees, right? So the bigger they grew, the more money they lost. And so I think within 268 days of their IPO, they actually went out of business. Crazy, right? Well, what did Amazon do that's fundamentally different besides selling books, which, by the way, in the US, you get a special rate from the US Post Office so that you're actually being subsidized on your shipping by the US Post Office. Well, what else did they do? Well, let's simply take a look at what Amazon.com's front page looks today for my Chrome browser, where I don't do any of my browsing on Amazon, and then this is my Safari browser. And right away you can see that the experience on the right is heavily personalized. You can see some of the things that I've been purchasing. I roasted a turkey for Thanksgiving, so there's a roasting rack there. A lot of camera equipment, musical instrument stuff. I just moved to a house, and now I'm getting into building things, and I've got some power tools there, right? So this is one of the fundamental differences, right? Amazon.com happens to be one of the first e-businesses, and they've since evolved to a digital business because this sort of a thing is something you can only do with digital technology. There are many other businesses doing the same thing. So here's another example. The Lending Club is an online peer-to-peer lending network. It happens to have a website, of course, but the core of it is that digital technology enables this company to connect lenders and borrowers directly together. So instead of going to your bank, instead of going to a credit card company, you actually say, hey, look, I would like to buy this TV. It's going to cost $1,000. I don't want to pay for it all at once. I'd like to get a small loan. And then people like Bruno and Pedro can say, sure, I know Fernando. He seems like a reliable guy. He has a steady job, so I will make this loan for him, and I will get more interest than I would get from just putting it in savings, and Fernando gets a lower rate than he would just going to the bank, right? So that's their business model, and I thought this was kind of a novelty until I saw it in the Financial Times. This was on the front page of the FT, and they're saying that a lot of the traditional banks and even the mortgage market in the US and the UK was being shaken up by this model. This is just showing how the Lending Club has grown over the last about 7 years or so. So now they're doing about $13 billion worth of loans, which is quite a bit of money. And the reason they're able to do this, which is a common theme along a lot of digital business models, is that they just have lower costs, right? So there is the peer-to-peer aspect, which means that you're cutting out all of the middlemen. You don't have to deal with financial regulations that banks do. And of course, they have completely modern IT systems. They don't have all of this legacy that they have to continue to maintain. So I don't know if you know in the US, but a lot of the major banks are closing their local branches. Citibank has announced that they're doing this. Bank of America, if you just look at the numbers over the last 5 years after the crisis, the number of actual physical branches has been in decline. They're leaving ATMs in some locations, but they're really thinking how to transform into more of a digital business. How can they use the financial information that they have, your buying habits and your creditworthiness, to offer you products, services, and value in new ways than it used to be, which was walking into a branch and talking to a teller. So this is on a downward slope, peer-to-peer is going up. Another industry, not really one that you think of as being in the forefront of digital technology, is agriculture. Here in Brazil, I'm sure there's a lot of agriculture that goes on, whether it's corn or palm oil, sugar, all of the rich resources that you have in this country. Well, this company, Agribotics, is doing something to transform agriculture. And what they're doing is they're using drone technology to give you real-time, what they call, what do they call this? They call it precision agriculture. So being able to know to the square, maybe square foot, how is the health of my crop, right? And so this is a digital mapping of the health of the crop. And what this allows people to do, the farmers can now focus their water and fertilization into the areas that actually need it. They're not wasting it in the parts that are growing healthy. They're increasing their crop yields. They're reducing their costs. Everyone's happy. And Agribotics, what they do is they don't actually sell the drones. I mean, you can purchase the drones from them, but they also let you use your own drone. They don't care. What they do is when you collect all of that data, you're not going to be able to make sense of it. So they have you upload all of that data into their cloud-based servers, and their cloud infrastructure is able to calculate based on that data and then produce the visualization and the action items that you need to make intelligent decisions. Agrobotics is part of a larger trend of smart agricultural tools and devices. Boston Consulting Group sees in the next few years adding sensors to things like tractors and other equipment so that you can actually have real-time insight into information into your crops without having to walk all that way by yourself. And even these people, so this is a German farmer, and the German people that I know are fairly conservative. They're not the quickest to adopt the latest technology. And yet, in a survey of German, Polish, and British and French farmers, 60% said that smart agriculture or digital farming is going to revolutionize the industry in the next 5 years. One more example, and this one's a little bit more fun, and this is Disney. So Fernando mentioned in the morning that Disney has a board of advisors that is broadly from the technology world, people like Jack Dorsey from Twitter, formerly Steve Jobs with Apple. And there are a number of articles online that talk about Disney's commitment to digital transformation that goes far beyond just what I'm talking about here. But one of the most tangible things that they've done is they've created a digital wristband. The magic wristband from Disney lets you take a lot of the hassle out of the experience of visiting one of their parks. It serves as your room key, your payment device. It also lets you collect photos when you go on the different rides. But it also activates this thing called Enchanted Art. And I just want to show you a very short video showing this. So what looks like an ordinary painting at first, if you approach it with the magic wristband, it actually comes to life. I like that they've made this one quite subtle so that you don't actually know that there's digital technology.
Remember the pirate code. No swimming without your floaties. This can't be a real pirate ship.
All right, so you can imagine how delightful an experience that could be, both for children and adults. And you can also imagine the ways that over time they can personalize this experience by actually knowing something a little bit about you and then incorporating that into the experience as well. So 3 very different case studies, 3 very different ways in which digital technology is changing these industries, some with completely new business models and some just enhancing the existing experience. But what I find in common with the 3 of them is that the things that are required, which we've talked about since this morning, are agility, being able to quickly deploy the right technologies and business processes to support this transformation, innovation, really rethinking from the bottom up how digital technology enables you to do business differently, and then ultimately understanding the customer, because technology is really just a means to an end, which is to help your customers get what they need. So Liferay 7, you've heard bits and pieces of Liferay's latest release, which was announced just a few weeks ago in Chicago. I want to talk about how a lot of these things come together to support the kinds of digital experiences that you're going to need as you undergo digital transformation in your business. But to do that and show how it's different, I want to take a look in the past. So before we had any kind of digital technology, before we even had websites, you still had companies and you still had customers. And a lot of business is about bringing the resources you have in your company, your products, your people, your processes, together to your customers. And if you're a really good company, you don't treat all customers the same. Depending where they are in their journey with you, you're going to personalize your experience for their current state of mind and where they are in that journey. Well, unfortunately, what we've often done is we've siloed ourselves and our customers into predetermined places of exchange. So the most obvious one would be a store or an office where you actually meet your customers And for some stores, one thing we've done in the last century with our management principles of training people and having consistent customer service is you've actually made it really hard for people to give personalized service, because every time you pick up the phone or walk in the store, someone will say, hey, welcome to Best Buy, how can I help you? Even if they have the dirtiest look on their face, or if they're super elated, or if they're carrying heavy boxes and it's very obvious that they're there for a return. So we've siloed people into these predetermined places, and that kind of thinking has carried over into the way that we design our websites and our mobile apps. And the thing that we have in common across all of these sites of interaction is that they're silos, right? They're a single place, everyone's treated the same, and they aren't meeting the customer where they are, but they're forcing the customer to come to you in the designated places you've determined. So why are silos bad? Well, it's really obvious. They take a lot of effort to build, whether it's a store or a website. You invest a lot of time to build this silo, and then once you've got it built, you don't want to have to tear it down and rebuild another one. And so they're kind of rigid. And even though things have changed, they're slow to adapt. How many of you go to your present public website and kind of cringe and say, oh man, we really got to update our website? Probably a lot of you. And that's the kind of thing that happens when we build silos. The other thing, which I mentioned, is that you don't meet customers where they are, right? So this event is kind of a silo. As I mentioned, many of you have traveled from all over South America to be here, and yet we said, hey, we're going to be in Sao Paulo, please book your flights and come here. It's a great event. It's great to have everyone in the same room, and there are intangible benefits of this kind of an interaction. And yet, I'm sure there are many more people who would love it if we could actually engage them in their office or home where they are, right? So how can we do this differently? Well, one thing is we have to examine what portals have done in the past to be complicit in this silo building. Portals were great because you had a lot of secure resources in your company that you couldn't just show to anybody, that you couldn't let anyone access. And so you had to have a place where people could access those things in a secure way. So portal is a word meaning door, actually. And what it did was it created a door between your company and your customers where you could interact. So one of the things we would do first is you have all of your resources, things like processes, information, products and documents in these back-end systems, and they're all locked up, right? And meanwhile, you also have things like services and people with expertise and knowledge, and they're in your organization, but they don't really know how to reach your customers. So you take all of that stuff, you integrate it all together, and then you make it kind of available into the portal, right? Once you've got it there, it became a lot easier to reuse these things. Reusing them, of course, internally, so that everyone was using the same document, same content, the same process, but also reusing them in your websites and your mobile applications and so forth. And because portals were designed to be consumed by these interfaces, we made it really easy to expose your enterprise assets through websites, portals, and intranets. And this was really valuable, and it still is. And even when we're doing the digital experience stuff, you actually need to do this. You need to do the integration and the reuse and the exposure so that you can actually achieve what I'm going to share on the digital experience side. So this was really great, but unfortunately, you're still making silos. You're still saying you have to come to this site, you have to come to this app. And the other thing is, see, all of these customers, they have a very different state of mind. Some of them are angry or confused. Some of them are indifferent. Some of them are big fans of your company, but we kind of treat them all the same, right? So how should we be doing this in the 21st century when we have all these digital technologies that can change the way we engage with customers? So we've still got the two fundamental groups, your customer, your company assets and your customers, and you want to bring them together. Well, let's take a look at one customer, and let's say this is a journey that they're on with your company. They're going to start out indifferent. Oh, Liferay, never heard of them. Kind of a cool name, starts with L. You know, they've got this guy who dances around in an alien costume. All right, that's cool. And then they're like looking into the company, and then they're trying to understand your products. It's like, portal, I don't know what that is. Like, can someone help me understand that, right? And maybe nobody helps them, so they get really angry. And they're like, Liferay is garbage. I would never want to use them. I'd rather go with IBM or Adobe or something like that, right? But at some point, with maybe a key conversation or really understanding what Liferay does, they turn around and suddenly they're a big fan of Liferay. They love the product. They come to our symposiums. They hang out with our staff. Maybe some of them want to join the company. And then they become fans, right? So this is a journey that one customer is going through, but every customer has their own journey, and it's different for each person. So what do you need to do as a company? You need to make sure that you can release all of your enterprise assets to the customer at the right moment in their journey, right? And that's why I said all that portal stuff is important, because integrating and reusing and exposing lets you do this, right? But once, let's say you're doing this right, then when the customer has no idea who Liferay is, you're going to send them the right documents, right? You're going to send them the right information to educate them, right? When they need help, you're going to deploy some of your best services. Maybe it's a consultant, maybe it's a pre-sales guy, but you're going to make sure that they get the help they need. Maybe when they're saying, Liferay is garbage because it doesn't scale and it can't meet my needs, well, actually, here's a performance white paper. You need to read this right now. And then once they actually go through the deployment and Liferay is running their multi-million user site, they're totally in love. And that's the moment when you set your customer success manager to talk to them about how to make sure they stay happy on Liferay and maybe other ways that they can use it. And then at some point, when they become your biggest fans, you want to actually include them in your sales or your community building process. You want to be able to call on them as a reference whenever you're closing a new opportunity. So how do we do that? We've got our customers on one end and we have our enterprise resources here. What are the sites of interaction? What are the windows of engagement that we have at each stage of this journey? Well, it's a lot of the same things that we've used in the past, like websites and mobile devices, mobile apps, but it's also going to be new things like digital kiosks, right? And of course, you're still going to do in-person interactions. Wouldn't it be great if the conversations that you had today at this event were immediately captured into your CRM system? Hey, today I met Liferay CEO. He seemed really interested in working with our university on some of our programs. I'd like to follow up with him in about a month, right? But right now it's just you wrote it on a business card or you kind of made a mental note and you kind of forget about it. And then of course, if you have a really big fan, then they're gonna have a Apple Watch or whatever, and they're gonna wanna get a notification every time Liferay needs a reference from you or something like that. So the digital platform not only has to expose your enterprise assets and make them available, they need to make it really easy to, in an agile way, create new windows of interaction, new places to engage and meet your customers quickly, repeatedly, even disposably, where you build a landing page and then the next week you don't need it anymore. And this whole stage is what we're calling engagement. This is where the two parties meet and engage. You exchange information, ideas, you move customers along that journey. And the other big lesson that we've all learned, not only in the technology industry, but everywhere really, is that it's not enough just to build that site or that app or that kiosk and forget about it. You have to use that as an opportunity to understand your users. So things like analytics, metrics, data, that becomes very important. And then finally, because what we're talking about is moving from these silos where everything was locked down and controlled to kind of exploding the experience across all of these disparate experiences, you're going to need to unify all of that so that regardless of whether you meet the customer in person, through a website, or through a mobile app, or anything else, it's unified. You can start a business process on your mobile device and then complete it over the phone. You can start on the website and then actually talk to someone in the store to finish a new transaction. So you want to unify that across the whole journey. So these three things, engagement, understanding, and unifying, these are the three things that I want to talk about for Liferay 7. So one of the longest standing feature areas of Liferay has been our digital experiences. And of course, a big part of that is web experiences. You know about all of the beautiful sites that Liferay has been used to build, like banyantree.com. They're very immersive and engaging and beautiful. So we want to keep investing in that. And in Liferay 7, one of the ways that we've done that is to build modern site templates. Liferay kind of got its start as a portal server before we added the content management system. And so a lot of the old CMS is kind of kludgy and hard to understand. It's very portal-centric. It's very based on portlets and things like that. Well, we want to change that. So we want to build a full-fledged modern CMS that is suitable for modern websites. If you read your news from Forbes.com or The Verge or Vox, you know that the way that they dynamically serve up content that's tailored to you is very, very different from the sites that we built back in, even up to 2008, 2009. So this is one of the areas that we really want to invest. Of course, websites are really fueled by content authors, and Liferay has also been quite bad in the area of making it easy to generate content. And so we've also invested with Liferay 7 in modern authoring tools like Alloy Editor that will make it a lot easier to actually write content. Alloy Editor, if you haven't checked it out yet, please check it out. It's a really great text editor that is so much more usable than CK Editor. What else do we have? So when you look at a lot of the interfaces in the past, so if you were with Liferay about 6 years ago, we were really excited about drag and drop, right? You could click something in the portlet menu and then drag it over to the portlet page. Well, guess what? That doesn't work on mobile devices, right? So we've needed to update a lot of our interfaces to actually be mobile friendly and to even be mobile first. So one of the things you'll notice with Liferay 7 is that a lot of the interfaces, even for authoring content, is actually mobile friendly, and this is an example here with the blogs editor. All right, so of course we all know about mobile and how big it is. We know how important it is. If you don't have a mobile app, if you don't have a mobile friendly website, then you're pretty much dead in the water. So we've invested a lot leading up to Liferay 7 to make Liferay very mobile friendly and mobile capable. We started off, of course, in 6.2 with responsive design so that any website you build in Liferay is going to be responsive out of the box, which is really cool. But we didn't stop there. You may remember a couple of years ago we announced the Liferay Mobile Sdk, and this was a way to take all of that reusable, exposed, rich functionality that was in the portal and make it available to your mobile apps. So things like authentication, things like localization, things like user registration. These are things you need in all of your mobile apps. You don't want to keep rewriting it over and over again. And what's worse is you don't want it to be inconsistent from what you're doing in your websites and your portals. So our team actually developed a mobile SDK so that you would have consistency and reusability across your websites and your mobile apps. And I believe that came out of the Brazil team led by Bruno and some of the other star engineers we have here. Well, at Liferay, we have kind of a friendly rivalry between Brazil and our Spain teams. And the Spain teams were like, well, mobile SDK is really cool, but it's really hard to use. I can't really consume it. And so one of the team members, Jose Manuel Navarro, created this thing called Liferay Screens. And what it does is it basically takes the mobile SDK, it figures out all the hard stuff, and then it gives you pre-built interfaces in both iOS and Android, so that all you have to do as a mobile app developer who may not know anything about Liferay at all is just drop these screens into your app. In fact, we have a demo, it's like a customer service app where there's like 7 or 8 different mobile screens, and the entire app pretty much is written using Liferay screens and very little code. So it's a very powerful tool. If you are already creating apps or if you're starting to create them, both the SDK and the screens projects are very, very powerful. So not to be left in the dust, then the Brazil team came back and said, well, okay, that's all cool, But what about push notifications? You actually need push notifications. And so I believe Zeno Rocha and some of the other stars here down in Brazil then came up with Liferay Push. And they had this sample app called Liferay Alerts, which would show this off. But basically now you can actually have push notifications, which if you were in Juan Fernandez's talk, he mentioned that I think over 70% of push notifications actually get open. So it's a great way to engage your customers. Okay, so that's kind of our mobile suite. There's a lot more coming. There's so much cool stuff coming in the mobile space, but that's all the time I have for that. So you've created all these websites, mobile apps, and maybe digital kiosks and things. How do you understand that? Well, without going into it too deeply, and this is really an area where Liferay has to invest more, it's of course analytics. So you may have sat in on the talk about the omnichannel campaign manager. A very important part of that, of course, is the metrics behind it. You may have sat in on the talk about Liferay Connected Services, also presenting a lot of analytics and data there. And then, of course, around things like engagement. So if you've written blogs, if you've published content to the website, how are users actually responding to it? These are the problems that Liferay wants to focus on as we continue to release more updates to the Liferay 7 platform. And then finally, this is kind of the most sort of vision casting part, and Ed Chung, our product VP, will get more into this. But we see the digital platform of Liferay connecting these experiences across the journey. One of the first areas that we wanted to invest in doing this is having a consistent user experience. So most of the major platform vendors like Apple and Google, they publish guidelines on how user interfaces should be designed and how technologists can guide people to a consistent user experience. Well, Liferay, not wanting to be second tier to Apple or Google, we decided that we wanted to invest in this as well. And our team has created a new Liferay experience language. It's called Lexicon. It's a beautiful framework for understanding user interface and designing experiences. Just some of the things that they've done is they've created consistency across navigation, the footer, the most important actions, and content. So here you can see the document and media library using the new Lexicon design language. But what's cool is that if you're accessing through the mobile version of the same thing, you're going to get that same hierarchy. So you've got the header on the top, you've got the navigation, you've got the actions, and then you've got the content, and then you've got the most important action, which is adding more content. So Lexicon is, you're going to see it throughout Liferay 7. It's a major part of our preparation to become this kind of platform that unifies the experience across all of these different interactions. And then the other part of that, which is understanding the customer across their journey, we want to have a comprehensive view of the user. I used the example earlier of this symposium, and there are probably thousands of interactions that have happened just today. Never mind that we have a 2-day event. How do you actually capture that? How do you connect all the dots together? And so one thing we want to do with Liferay 7 platform, future releases, is to have modern user profiles. Rather than thinking of users in a system like this person is a manager and he only has permission to access these records, we want to understand users as people whose journey evolves over time. So this could be your customers, this could be your partners, it could be your employees. If you're in the government or nonprofit space, it could be constituents. But you want to understand all of the different things that they're doing across all of your points of interaction, all of your digital touch points, and then you want to bring it together. And this is a living profile. It actually changes over time because who the person is not really set in stone, right? I'm sure we have so many people in our own organizations where the title is developer, but they're actually acting like an IT director. Or the title might be marketing specialist, but they know more than the CMO, right? So you want to enrich your understanding of people beyond just their static credentials to the dynamic profile that they have. And then of course you want to use that information to tailor experiences to what they need. And then finally, connecting all the dots. So one thing I do a lot is fly, because I go to a lot of our Liferay conferences, I meet a lot of customers, and so I'm at the airport a lot. I'm always booking flights and missing flights and rebooking flights and things like that. And so one of the things that I've appreciated about United, despite in many other ways being a very mediocre airline, is that they've actually invested a lot in information technology. And so my journey with them usually starts on united.com, which they've also revamped recently, but it might, in the middle of my journey, take me to my mobile app. I actually go to the airport, I want to check the gate, I want to see if there are any delays. And they're actually really good about updating the mobile app with the most up-to-date information. So you can see that little red message there. They actually told me, hey, there's a delay in your flight and you're going to miss your connection. So if you want, you can right now actually make the change. You can update it and we're not going to charge you any money for that. Well, in this last instance in July when I was flying to Ohio, I actually didn't do that. I ended up going to the customer service desk in the lounge, and of course they knew who I was, and so they were already able to pull up the different options that I had for changing my flight. And of course this journey continues, and it might go back to the mobile app at some point, it might end at the website, but you want to have that continuity. So we're trying to figure out how Liferay as a platform can provide that, because in the past we relied on the silo. We said, well, sure, as long as you visit the same bank branch over and over again, you're going to build a relationship with me. Or as long as you go to our website, we're going to let you continue your business process where you left off. But our customers aren't going to want to go to those silos anymore. We need to meet them where they are. We need to give them the right information at the right time, and we got to do it through the interface that suits them for that part of the journey when they need it. So that's what we want to do with Liferay 7. It's a lot of technology, a lot of vision, but ultimately our goal is to help you to have this kind of experience for your customers, to delight them, to put a smile on their face so that they have exceptional experiences with your company. So to get into more detail with that, I'd like to welcome Ed Chung to the stage. He's our VP of Product who's going to tell us a little bit more of what we have planned for the future of Liferay. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure being here with all of you. Thank you for making it to the end of the day. This is the last session for today, and it's always a pleasure being here. This is my second year at the Brasil Symposium, and I have the privilege of traveling to many places to share Liferay's vision of our product. And I'm grateful for being able to be here today. And what I'd like to do is maybe dig in a little deeper to some of the concepts and some of the vision that casting that Bryan did in the session prior to this one. Now, as I go around all these places giving the roadmap, the first event this year was in Spain. And it's actually where I live. I moved to Madrid 2 years ago to work a little more closely with our engineering team there and our VP of engineering who's there. And our Spain Symposium this year started on October 21st, 2015. And hopefully some of you are familiar with this interface. Can I see by a show of hands how many of you have seen Back to the Future? All right, great. So, if you're familiar with the movie, it's about this guy, at least the second movie is about this guy, Marty McFly, and he goes back into the future to save his children in this time-traveling car that you see here. Now, what was really fun about that second movie was they made a bunch of predictions about what the future would be like in 2015, what the future would be like about a month ago. So I thought, it's the last day of the presentation. You guys are all tired, trying to keep it a little fun. Let's look at some of those predictions made in the movie and see where we are today in 2015. Okay, so I'm not sure if you're able to see this very well. It's a little dark, but this is one of the characters, and his name is Biff. And what he's doing here is he's paying for his taxi cab ride using his fingerprint. So what technologies are being represented here? It's biometric identification. So he's using his fingerprint to identify himself, but he's also using it as a form of payment. Now, so where are we today in 2015 with biometric identification and payment? And you know, with Apple Pay, it's very obvious that they had that right. It was pretty much a direct prediction that came true. I'd say the only difference is instead of scanning your fingerprint into a device that's at the cab, you scan your fingerprint into your own device to be able to pay. And that's one thing that they predicted, and we're in 2015, and it's very much something that we live with every day. Okay, the next one. I'm sorry for the grainy picture. It's the best one I could find, but what's going on here? There's a dog being walking, and the dog is actually being walked by something flying up there. And what is that? It's a drone, yeah. So where are we with drones today? And I think all of you would pretty much agree that drones are ubiquitous. They're everywhere. You have Amazon Prime Air. You have other examples where drone technology is even getting in the way. In the US, the Forest Service has been able to account for about 13 wildfires in which there were drones flying because people were trying to get pictures of these wildfires, and they were getting in the way of the helicopters that were doing the firefighting, that were delivering water and fire retardation material to these forest fires. They were delayed up to like 20 minutes because there were these drones that were in the way. So it's pretty ubiquitous when you think about drones. Okay, so let's look at one more, the last one. And I think one thing that I would say about this prediction that with the drone walking the dog is, it's a pretty naive way of thinking of how you could use drone technology. Now, I don't know about you, but I think part of the enjoyment in walking your dog is to spend time with him, to get some exercise. And so maybe this was a naive way of thinking of how that technology would work, but that's okay. Okay, so the final one, it's the biggest one. It's the one that everyone's familiar with. It's the flying car. Now, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but in 2015, we actually have flying cars. They're not as ubiquitous as you would hope, but people have invented them. But I don't want to focus on the flying car aspect. I think there's something far more interesting to me, and that's how is the flying car flying? And in the future, they predicted that you could use garbage to power the car. So he was using garbage and used it, and that was the source of energy for this flying car. Now, so where are we in 2015 with this concept of using garbage to get power? Is this happening? And yes, it is. There's a water treatment facility in Washington, D.C., and they use poop to be able to make clean water. Now, that just blows my mind. You're using poop, something that you would think is very dirty, and that's being used as energy to make clean water. And I think this is an example of, could you have imagined something like this happening where, yeah, garbage being used for energy, but poop being used to make clean water? That really blows my mind. And in this example, I think we see something where we end up using the technology in a way we didn't even imagine. So you have a few examples of how hard it is to predict the future. One where you have something naive with a drone maybe walking a dog, which you'll probably never ever use. Another one where there was garbage using to power a car, but it went even further. You have poop being used to make clean water. And so I think as we start talking about the roadmap, about the things that we're predicting for the future of Liferay, I don't want to focus on the technology. I don't want to feature necessarily or focus necessarily on the features that we're building. But I think what's far more interesting is what are the problems that we are trying to solve? Because I think the problems themselves don't change greatly over time, but the technology and the way in which we use them may. Okay, so let's maybe take a step back. At a very high level, 10,000-foot view, where are we going with Liferay as a digital platform? And I think Bryan did a great job of summarizing where we see Liferay as a digital platform. And I would separate it into 3 areas. Engaging your users, really understanding their needs, and unifying that experience, that cohesive experience that they can have with your company. And now we're at a place where engaging users is across multiple devices, multi-channel, where understanding their needs is not just on your website or the mobile apps, but kiosk, in person, in all these different ways. And that all leads to being able to unify that experience so that you have a whole understanding of your users, what they're trying to do, and being able to meet them where they are. So why don't we see if we can kind of summarize that using some graphs so that we can talk about what Liferay provides for you now and what we're planning to do to provide you more value in the future. So I'd say right now, most companies choose Liferay because we provide a lot of tools for being able to create websites. And within the last year, mobile apps, whether they're native, hybrid, or mobile websites. And they cover a wide range of different use cases like portals, websites, intranets, those types of things. And part of the reason all this was really easy and people chose Liferay was we provided a lot of cool functionality out of the box. Things like content, collaboration, social, workflow, and many, many more things. And unlike the infrastructure portals of the past, we had functionality that you could use right away and customize. We also made it easy to integrate to back-end systems through APIs and web services, and then expose all that information so that it could go up into the UI layer. And this is the value proposition that most people are familiar with Liferay. Okay? So where do we evolve from here? How can we begin to provide you more value for investing in Liferay as a digital platform? Now, it would be great if all of our customers ended up using Liferay to build all their websites and their mobile apps. But quite frankly, you're not going to do that. You're going to use other frameworks. You're going to use other tools to be able to build the things that you need to build. And that's okay. Maybe what we can do with Liferay is provide an easier way in which you can be able to surface up content, data, applications from Liferay to non-Liferay third-party sites. And we've been able to do that many years now through our web services, but we want to see can we provide you more tools, more capabilities to make it much easier to accomplish that. And we're also thinking about, how will this all work with connected devices? If you look at the IoT of things and look at what the trends are and how many things are going to be connected into the future, Liferay wants to be at the forefront of that, and that's very much part of our vision for the future. Now, so once you have these sites created, whether they're Liferay sites, third-party sites, or through connected devices, one big problem that you're going to have to solve is how do you bring all that together so that it's one seamless experience? And if you happen to leave off from one channel and continue on another channel, how do we provide that continuity? And that's one of the problems that we're looking to solve with Liferay as a digital platform. And as we get users interacting across all these different touch points, how do we bring all that information back into the portal so that we can have a better understanding of the user? So we're looking at analytics, metrics, activity tracking, and how can we get all those things working together so that you can have a better understanding of your users and their needs. So that's a high-level vision of where we want to take Liferay, of where Liferay provides you value today, but we're looking for how Liferay can provide you even more value in the future. Still very high level. We're going to drill down into things that are a bit more specific. And the first thing I want to talk about is forms. Our forms is built out of actually our team here in Brazil. It's led by Marcellus. And we're really excited about the new form builder that we have launching with Liferay 7. Now, I think most people, when they think of surveys and simple forms, they're thinking about this form, the form in the survey for the one very specific usage. Whether it's, I need to register, I need my customers to register for an event, I need them to download a white paper, I need to fill out this application. Now, it's really important for you to be able to support these kind of interactions for your users. But these interactions, like Bryan mentioned earlier, if you're not careful, they can be very siloed activities. And if you treat them as siloed activities, they won't contribute to a greater understanding of who your users are and what their needs are. And so we feel that forms can be an integral part of learning about your users as they signal to you what's important to them and what's not important to them. So some of the things that we're thinking about for our forms and workflow where we think it can really provide you a lot of power is, first off, we want to enable it so that you can access data from other systems of records and have them populate fields within your forms that you create. So for example, let's say you have a form where you need to have an update of what all your products are. Now perhaps instead of hard coding what your products are into your form, you can have a web service or you can have a call into your backend SAP system and be able to have an updated list of your products that will be continually updated as you remove and add new products into SAP. And even beyond that, perhaps one of the fields is something where you have to do some foreign exchange and you need to look up the exchange rate. And you need to have that exchange rate be specified at a specific date. Well, maybe we can go out, call a web service, be able to get that exchange rate, and be able to do those calculations so that they're accurate and on the fly. Okay? So that's one benefit that we see, being able to access data from systems of records and use them within your forms. But I think that's not going far enough. I think there's an opportunity for us here to really create not just information pool, but a bidirectional flow of information so that you can store the captured information that you have in your forms in multiple data sources. So another example we have is a lot of you had to fill out a form to register for the Symposium event. Now let's say you filled out your job title and you said that you were a marketing manager. Now in Liferay, we automatically understand that, hey, you're a business user, you're interested in the business track, you're not technical because you are a marketing manager. And instead of just understanding that for that one event, what if what we could do is then use that information to add you to our user segment in audience targeting as a business user, so that we can be able to service you up more personalized content that's relevant to you. And perhaps another thing that you fill out is the company that you're working for. And what we detect here is, hey, let's go and see and check our Salesforce to see if we have any contacts or any leads from that company. And we realize we don't. That's a new company. We don't have them in our CRM. So then what we can do is once we do that check, we can add this contact into our CRM so our salespeople understand that, hey, there are people coming to this event that are from a company we haven't interacted with before, and maybe this might be a new lead that you can follow up on. So we're interested in being able to provide these types of capabilities for our forms and workflow where we really can harness the power of the integration of not only being able to pull back information from systems of records, but really interact with them in a smart way so that you can get to understand your users better. Another area of focus for us is going to be localization. And like I explained to you, I moved to Spain a couple years ago, and this is the sign up online for ordering a pizza for Domino's Pizza. And this is what I was used to, filling out my first name, my last name, my email address, and my phone number. And to me, it seemed pretty simple. And then when I got to Spain, this is a different form I had to fill out. And it's essentially the same form, but there are things going on here that make them slightly different. So it's not just taking a language and translating the fields. There are distinct things going on here. And some of the things are, there's a different look and feel for each of the regions. The layout's different. There are custom fields you have in one side that are in the other. The field formatting is very different. So one of the biggest things that I kept making mistakes in when I got to Madrid was I used the US system for dates. I always did month, day, year. And ended up filling out a lot of forms incorrectly because the rest of the world does it, I would say now after 2 years living in Madrid, the right way. Day, month, year. It makes much more sense. Will our forms be able to adapt to localization issues like that with field formatting? And of course, finally, language. So those are some of the things that we're thinking about in terms of how can we really empower localizations of forms so that you can make forms that are relevant regardless of the region. And here's the second page to filling out the pizza that highlights some of this as well. It's filling out the address. In the US, it's just your the only required fields are your street address, your apartment number, maybe your city, and your state and zip code. And I have been in Madrid for a couple years, so now I know very intimately what a portal, escalera, piso, and puerto, I know what they all are, but when I first got there, I was amazed at how different it is just to fill out an address between two different regions. And these are the kind of things that we want to solve with our forms and workflow. Now, one thing that alludes to is how can we create these forms that are different based upon something that a user has selected. So maybe perhaps the way you do it is if they fill out a region somewhere up top of the form, it will then dictate, if you fill out United States, it's going to give you the English localized version of the form. And if you happen to pick Spain, then it will give you the appropriate Espanol version of the form. And what we want to do with the forms is we're saying right here, that it may be a drop-down. It may be looking at your IP address and then being able to feed you the correct form based upon the region you come from. So in short, forms, localization, it's not just translating the language. I'm sure you all appreciate that, but for a US audience, it's something that I have to really stress over and over again. And living in Madrid now and getting out of my US perspective, I really do think I have a better understanding of this. Another thing that we're thinking about is how to make our forms mobile friendly. One of the reasons we decided to recreate forms from scratch is because we really wanted to think about mobile first design. And I think what our team has done, Jatson, Marcellus, is great because they've really taken the mobile first design to heart, and that's really driven the design and development of our new form builder, and we're very happy with the results. And I think Marcellus presented earlier today about the new form builder that we have available for 7.0, and if you've missed it, maybe you can download the slides later. Okay, so where are we going with why are forms so important? And I think the thing that really drives me is if you look at many parts of a website, if you look at what forms can really empower your company to do, forms are everywhere. And if you are able to empower your power users, your marketers, your operations people, your staff, with the ability to build their own simple little business applications, something as simple as a form like this, you think about any of the applications that are already in Liferay, things like blogs, which is a pretty simple application. And we have useful tools like application display templates. And what application display templates allow you to do as a developer is it allows you to change the layout, create custom fields, do many things that developers can do to customize the experience of this application. Well, what if we put that power in the hands of business users, where they could take forms, create their own custom fields, change the layout, change the look and feel, be able to localize them, be able to pull data from systems of record, and create these composite applications that require no IT intervention and really empower the power user to be able to get work done. We see a lot of hope and promise in this, and this is where we're taking the future for forms and workflow. Okay, so forms are definitely one way you can engage with your users. What about websites? I think Bryan talked about, the investment we made with Liferay 7 in building modern websites. And how he talked about how dynamic, personalized, driven sites like The Verge are the types of sites that we're thinking about in terms of how can we empower you to create relevant sites like this. So some ideas that we have right now are you're going to have to be able to publish content sets. And what I mean by that is, let's say you have 4 or 5 different white papers and they're all PDFs. And these white papers are maybe for an industry, they're for banking. Is there a way that you can easily take that content set and be able to publish it somewhere on a landing site, on a website, and not have to go through and do this very manually? Is there a way you can map this set of content to a pre-existing template that you've created to be able to easily publish this content set? So those are some of the things that we're thinking about. So it's not just PDFs, it's blogs, videos, web content articles, anything that you want to publish in a more dynamic and easy way. We want to support that. Now, one of the concepts I talked about is landing pages. So I think when Liferay was first designed, back in, what was it, the mid-2000s, there was a real need for marketers to be able to protect their brand and separate out the content from the actual design. And you didn't want people changing the font, you didn't want them changing the color, you wanted a consistent brand experience. But I think we're kind of coming back to an area where when you're creating landing pages, you want to be able to marry those concepts of design and content together to be able to create these beautiful looking sites like the one for Nexus 6. And so we're thinking about how can we better support the use case for something like a landing page? And how can we also incorporate marketing concerns like call to actions, the page performance, the click-throughs, so that we can optimize these experiences that you can create for your users that don't have to be so heavy and take forever to create, but can be created very quickly and easily be thrown away so that you can create new experiences as well. And I think part of that is going back to can we provide flexibility in how you can actually create and lay out the page. And this is gonna, we're thinking this will be built on many of the concepts of the new form builder that we have. But what if we allowed your power user to easily lay out the page by dragging and dropping your sections, and then define within each content area basically the format, what's gonna be where, and then be able to then if you're able to marry that concept of designing the template with easily being able to create content sets, then you have a very easy way of designing new experiences very quickly for large content sets. And then I think what we want to provide is a way that you can easily click through and preview the content and how it would look like. And the other thing that we want to take into consideration is the layout behavior through your mobile device. Maybe what you want to do is, once you've designed the desktop version, go through and then define, like for my mobile site, I want to establish the order in which my content is presented. I want to define this section to the left as a hamburger menu, floating panels on the bottom, and perhaps the ad is something you want to remove completely from your mobile experience. We want to give marketers and power users the ability to create beautiful landing pages with call to actions, with page performance, with things like this that will allow you to easily engage and understand your users. So that's it for modern websites. And so once you have this concept of the things you can do to understand your users through forms and through websites, I think one thing I mentioned earlier was how do you create these seamless experiences across different channels? And that's a concept that we're calling continuity. And this is actually something we already investing in, we already have. Let's say you were filling out a report in your mobile device, you lost your connection, and the next time you logged in was through your desktop, and you were given basically an advisement, hey, you're filling this out on your mobile device. Do you want to continue completing that last interaction you had with us, yes or no? And this may seem like a very simple example of continuity, but I think this is one area where a lot of companies miss the level of frustration that your users have when they continually have to repeat the things that are important to them over and over and over again. For me, I experience this a lot when, I need to renew my cell phone plan. So in the US, a lot of times, I'll be on the website looking up my new phone that I want to get. I want to go to the store because I actually want to touch it and feel it, but every time I go to the store, it's like, hey, hello, who are you? And I have to explain what I've been doing on their website for the last couple hours. Then when I call customer support to find out, am I eligible for an upgrade, they have no context of why I'm calling, even though I've had all these touch points with them. And so what we want to do with Liferay is there a way that we can provide continuity across all the interactions that you have, whether they're digital, whether they're in person, and whether they're Liferay based or not? And I don't think James Faulkner's at this symposium, but at our North American symposium, he had this awesome presentation about how you can do some of this in Liferay 6.2 today. So our goal, I think, for continuity is to provide a way of being able to unify that experience across the journey, across all the different devices, and all the different ways your customers are signaling to you the things that are important to them. Okay, so once we've got all the channels, they're working together, we want to be able to measure how effective things are. Part of understanding who your users are being able to have the analytics and metrics in order to understand the level of engagement. One thing we want to provide are engagement metrics, basically helping authors understand what content is relevant to your customers and what content isn't. We want to be able to measure the effectiveness of your communication, help you gain insight on what's your popular content, what are the frequent search terms, why are people abandoning your site. And we want to be able to have users, so the concept before was quickly create these landing pages, quickly create these areas of interaction, and then take an agile development approach of using metrics to understand what's working, what's not, what do you need to optimize. And that all comes through the metrics we can provide. So one thing I want to describe here is perhaps now that you've created a form, let's say you've created something like this, and it's something like a credit card or a banking application. Let's say then Liferay provides you with a heat map capability, and you find out like, hey, there's a problem here. People are getting stuck filling out this form. And where are they getting stuck? Well, they're getting stuck right there where they have to fill out their social security number. And privacy is a big issue, I think, everywhere. And when you look down into the details, you'll be able to see what's changed that form recently that maybe led to this abandonment rate, the spike in abandonment rate. And what you'll see is that all of a sudden, people can see their social security numbers, but before we were starring it out. Now, why would we do that? And so maybe the analytics that we provide on the form side will tell you that when you show the social security number for people who are older, that will lead to a decrease in them filling out the form. For people who are younger, that will actually increase the submission rate for that form. And you may not, you can point to the fact that older people are probably more concerned about their privacy, more concerned about their information. Younger millennials are more concerned that they filled that form out right so they can click on submit. Who knows what's going on there, but these are the type of analytics that we want to provide. Not analytics overall about what's working and what's not, but specific to the segments that you define and the users and the profiles you create. So then, that would lead to a behavior for you to be able to say for this age user group, if you can identify their age, give them the experience of the start out numbers. But if they happen to be younger, give them the experience of showing them the numbers they're entering so that they can make sure that they've entered it correctly. We talked about the investment we're making in landing pages. On the analytics side, we're thinking about, can we provide a dynamic call to action manager for those landing pages? Now, I think one of the biggest challenges with digital marketing is coming up with what's the right call to action and guessing what's right and what's wrong. And I think what a good dynamic CTA manager would do for you is take the guesswork out of your hands, provide you with analytics, provide you with A/B testing so that you can be able to set up some tests to figure out, okay, based upon your user groups, what call to actions are going to be more engaging for them and what are they going to click on? And so coupling that with analytics, with whether it's page-centric or call to action-centric, is the type of things that we want to provide on the landing page side. Okay, so we talked about different ways that you can engage your users by creating forms, by creating websites, mobile devices, how you can have this analytics and metrics to be able to optimize the behavior. The next thing I want to talk about is how do we take time to really understand how to unify that experience and how to really understand who users are and what the context is that they're coming from. So I think Bryan talked about this whole concept of the static user profile. If you think about your resume, what is that? That's a static biographical thing that is outdated like a week or two after you've started working at a new job. And every time, I talk to friends and they're unhappy with their current job, what is it? Hey, let's update the resume, right? But the difficult part of that is it's a very static and I'd say one-dimensional view of who a user is. And I think one example of the one-dimensionalness comes from this closing site in the US, and their CMO came up with this idea that he thought was brilliant. If you could stop marketing dresses to men, it would be amazing, right? And on the surface, if you think about it, yeah, like if I'm shopping online for clothes and I'm shopping for myself, I don't want to see women's clothing. That kind of makes sense to me. But what they ended up doing was they ended up upsetting their users because their users were multidimensional. So one thing you have to understand about me is I really hate shopping. So my wife does my shopping for me. So what's the user perspective from my wife when this site is targeting content for women's clothing to her because they understand that her gender is woman and make it very hard for her to break out of that context to be able to shop clothes for me. I have 3 boys. My wife does the majority of shopping for my 3 boys. So you have a woman here who's doing shopping online and you're showing her just gender-driven women's clothing and she's trying to shop for her husband and she's trying to shop for her children and she can't. Why? Because it's targeting that's gone a little too far and a very naive concept of who a user is and not taking into consideration the multiple dimensions that your users can have when they interact with you. Here's another example. Like up until a year ago, watching Netflix was extremely frustrating to me. Why? Because like I said, I have 5 people in my family. As soon as I show my sons a video on the weekend and then later on that night, they're asleep and I want to watch a video, what happens? I get all these ads for watching cartoons, for watching kid shows. I'm like, that's not me. Just because I showed this to my kid, you think this is what I'm interested in, but I'm not. So what did Netflix do? Well, they they realized people are unhappy because it's one family account, but there are multiple users that are using that account. So they created this thing called a profile. So now I've created a profile for each member of my family, and it's very easy. As soon as I click my name, I know that the content that I'm going to get is going to be personalized to me. Okay, so here we have, let's say that someone like my wife, we really need to understand the relationship, understand the user, understand the context, understand what they need. So in one context, maybe my wife needs to buy clothes because my kids are going back to school and they need back to school clothes. So what content should be suggested? Probably kids' clothing. But in another context, maybe she's buying a gift for me. I go to a lot of these symposiums, and I can tell you I'm pretty bad about remembering to take everything from the hotel at that point. And sometimes maybe I lost my suit and I need a new suit. Is there a way we can provide her the right context? And maybe another time, the context is she needs a new coat. It's seasonal, it's wintertime, and she wants a new coat. And you want to suggest this to her. But if you really know my wife, she won't buy it unless you give her a 40% discount. So how would that work? Putting people in the context to give them what they need next. So what we're thinking about is how do we unify that journey and experience? So I think one thing that we're going to have to work on is, for a user, is there a way that we can see their activity timeline? Whether it's through Liferay interactions in third-party sites, in the store, anywhere, is there a way we can list them all and provide you a way to filter the actions that are most meaningful? And then we have to look at what you're doing against your context. What's your profile? What are the user segments? What are the things that are relevant to you during the time of that interaction? And we also have this context of journeys, the experiences that we can create for you. Maybe it's a back-to-school sale campaign. Maybe it's a fall promotion. Maybe it's a gift for your spouse promotion that we have. And what we want to be able to do is have marketers define, okay, these 3 interactions match the profile of has children, and she's in the user segment of women who buys children for clothes. And maybe the interaction that and the experience we want to promote to her is the back-to-school sale that we're having for children's clothing. And perhaps once you've done the analysis of their activity and understand their profile, you find that there's no relevant journey for this user. And you can go ahead and create new journeys, new experiences that you can use to engage this user. So that's a lot of information. I know for sure we probably won't be able to get to all of it in the next release, but that's okay. Please help us prioritize these things that are important. I think since I go to a lot of these events, after I give the roadmap, I think I feel like Doc Brown from Back to the Future. And what he's showing you here is this is the flux capacitor. And what that is the solution to time travel. Thinking, wow, that's great, right? The roadmap's great. I'm predicting the future. These things are all going to be relevant. But I know some of you are probably thinking, I don't think you've invented the flux capacitor. I think you've invented this. And what this is this is the brainwave analyzer, which was one of the inventions he created. And it was intended for him to be able to read other people's minds. But it didn't work at all. And so I think that's where I encourage you guys, please contribute your feedback to us. I'll be here for the next day, happy to engage with you in conversations. Hopefully you have account managers, you have support people, you have a great team here in Brazil to be able to talk to. Tell them you want to speak to a product manager about great ideas you have, and we'll be happy to continue that conversation with you. Thank you very much.